Welcome to Quilting Kentucky Stories, a special series from Tales from the Kentucky Room. I am Sylvia Lovely, coach, teacher of writing, and particularly writing the stories of your life. The stories you will hear, most of them are from my writing students in the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning class entitled Writing the Stories of Your Life, or from opportunities I have had to coach budding writers. Some of these stories are funny, some sad, and sometimes both. They are not lengthy, but each adds on an exclamation point to life.
This is Holly Epperly, Making Meaning.
It was New Year's Eve. I was 20 years old, and I'd been invited to attend this late-night New Year's Eve vision-clarifying evangelical worship service. So I get to the church, and I open up the doors, and I'm just hit with this blanket of emotion-stirring ethereal music. In front of me, there's a room full of people swaying and singing in unison. It just had this sense of palpable oneness. Then up at the front of the room, there was a stage full of very important-looking, confident-seeming young people with microphones and guitars. They seemed to be kind of conducting the whole experience for everyone. Now, I'm going to take a second and give a little snapshot of my life at that time. There was a lot changing for me. I was a newlywed of less than a month. I was coming out of that freedom, low-stakes exploration period of my adolescence and teen years. And I was coming face-to-face with impending adulthood. And I had a lot of questions. What path will I take next? Who am I going to become? What is my place in the world? Those are the big questions. And I was introduced to this church group, and it's hard to describe. Pretty immediately, they communicated to me this sense of acceptance and belonging. And it was very clear in my mind, like, this is the path. This is the future. They communicated that all that came before was just a shadow, and life starts now. Well, that was pretty convenient for me, considering my current inner struggles. And it was just such a whirlwind, five senses experience that it was really hard to resist. And yet a part of me somewhere was resisting. I did have these argumentative voices in my mind trying to point out the flaws in this path, the holes in the whole system. For example, joining this group seemed to require all my time and attention, which essentially meant I was abandoning the existing friendships in my life. I was really conflicted about this. I had such a beautiful group of people that I'd built connections with over the years, and I felt I was failing as a friend. It was a conflict in my values. I didn't want to let them go. I also felt like a part of myself was changing and slipping away. I had been very outgoing and energetic, not afraid to say what I thought, to do what I enjoyed, and I loved hearing other people's views and experiences. I wrote in my journal at that time that I felt I was becoming this quiet, uncertain person, hesitant to share my thoughts and a little embarrassed to be seen as different. I was very uneasy about that. It worried me. Okay, back to the vision seekers and the worship service. As I considered these thoughts and doubts I was having, one of those important-seeming young people with a microphone announced from the stage that she had a message for someone. I sat there thinking, a message for someone? Who? Could it be me? No, surely not, but maybe. So I determined I'd just be open. I'd try to have faith, listen just in case, but also not expect too much. I was going to be happy for whoever the lucky message from above lottery winner turned out to be. So the message was delivered with great gravity and conviction. God wants you to know, whatever has been lost can be recalled in an instant. There's no need to try so hard to hold on. Well, I thought this girl has either been reading my journal or that message was for me, a light for my path. And I took it to mean I could move forward and not be afraid of losing anything important. So I told those pesky resisting thoughts to quiet down and stop being an enemy to this forward motion that I needed so much. Fast forward 14 years later to the winter of 2018, and a lot actually had been lost. Almost no aspects of my life remained that did not fit neatly in this circle of this church community and their ideology. Those doubts from years earlier, I guess they got tired. They were drowned out by the constant busyness and striving of this path I'd chosen. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and another on the way. I'd quit my job earlier that year to be home with them full-time, and my husband Daniel was in grad school. And I was suppressing huge amounts of stress and pressure. I was at full capacity. I really did not need another challenge. But I woke up one morning and I couldn't stop throwing up and had the worst stomach pain I'd ever experienced. It was so bad I had to make a little bed outside the bathroom because I couldn't move myself any farther than that. And it just went on, and I finally made it to the doctor with Daniel pushing me in a wheelchair. The only thing I could do was just try to breathe as I shut my eyes and buried my head in my hands. It was pretty scary since I was pregnant, and I ended up staying a few nights in the hospital while they tried to decide if it was appendicitis or a virus or something else. But while in the throes of this pain that made the rest of the world just fade away, I had what I would describe as a vision. It was like I won the word from on high lottery once again. I saw this scene play out behind my closed eyes. It was me inside a cylindrical building like an old Coliseum or something, and it was filled with pillars that weren't attached to anything, and they were wobbling back and forth. I sat on top of one of these, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it toppled over and fell. It seemed I was helpless. And I will note that the life I lived at that time kind of hinged on the acceptance of my own helplessness. I didn't have a lot of tools to work with besides surrender and hope for the best. So I spread out my arms and I prepared to fall. The only way I would survive, I thought, was for something to just miraculously save me before I hit the ground. I mustered up all this belief and hope, but I also reminded myself that I needed to accept my fate if it happened to be my demise. But then a voice in this vision said to me, "Stop. Use what you have, build some stairs, and climb out." So I did. I pushed one pillar into the next and the next like dominoes until they formed stairs I could climb, and I saved myself. I saved myself. Amazing, right? At that time, I took it as a metaphor for rising up in strength through my physical pain and not giving up, which it was, but I would learn it was also more. As for the cause of my pain, it ended up being inconclusive. I stayed a few nights in the hospital, and then I felt better, and the baby was fine, and I went home and went on with normal life, thankfully. But over the next few years, a lot started to change for me and my family. The pandemic was a huge catalyst for this. Like a lot of us, it gave us a pause in time and the space that we needed to do some thinking. With all of our meetings canceled and friends not coming to visit, we were just released from that whirlwind force we got caught up in all those years before. And it took some time, but I started to see where I had too freely put my trust in others to give me the answers that are intrinsically mine to discover. It was like I tried to hit fast forward on one of the most important tasks of my life, my search for my own meaning. It's honestly hard to look at sometimes. It's also hard to see that there are so many still in this whirlwind. But shortly after changing course, I had a dream. Yet another light for my path. I was back in that Coliseum from my vision with those steps I built when I had reclaimed my power to choose my own path. And this time I was walking backward up the stairs, holding tight to the hands of those I loved, trying desperately to pull them with me to a new life. I saw their suffering, and I realized the striving they so readily accept, and I wanted to set them free. But they didn't want to come, and they didn't want me to go. The people who so long ago compelled me to leave my life behind and find a future, they were now the people keeping me in the past. I knew the only way for me to get out was to let go of their hands and keep walking on my own. So I climbed out, respecting myself enough to keep going and respecting their choice to stay. My takeaway from all of this is that maybe the truth is transient relationships are just a part of life. Maybe I would have grown apart from the friends of my youth no matter what path I had taken. It's very tempting to see that whole period of my life as a big mistake. But I prefer to believe it was simply an unavoidable and necessary learning experience. Life really has a way of moving me forward on its path and lighting little lamps at the forks to help me on my way. I think there was deep meaning in that message from the girl on New Year's Eve, although I let the people in that room dictate to me what the meaning was. I've learned that forging ahead often does mean leaving something behind, but the past is not just an unimportant shadow to be forgotten. And doubts aren't my enemy. In fact, often they are messengers. And any part of me that has been lost truly can be recalled and revived again.
Thanks for listening to Quilting Kentucky Stories, a special series from Tales from the Kentucky Room. If you want to hear more episodes like these, you can subscribe, rate, and review Tales from the Kentucky Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can visit us at lexpublib.org/podcasts. That's lexpublib.org/podcasts. We'll be back with another patch for the quilt of Kentucky stories.